Okay guys, what I'm actually here to do is to work with you on graphing asymptotes or finding the equations of asymptotes. So I am going to write asymptotes over to the side here because what I want to do is not only graph them and review that. You guys actually did really well on the hyperbolas graphing them. It was finding the equations of the asymptotes that were difficult. So what I was going to do is two problems and focus on these two problems on the asymptotes. So let's look back for this just a second. The center of this one is going to be what? Do you remember? 0, 0, because there's nothing with the x or y. So this one's centered on 0, 0. And then the x has a squared is 25. So a is 5. So I'm going to go up 5, down 5. And then for the b, your 9 is b squared. So b is 3. So I'm going to go out 3 in each direction. Now I do want to point out that these are my vertices. So that means it's going to open up or down, given those situations. So this is where your box would be. Okay, quick box. And I don't have a straight edge out here, so I'm going to try to kind of okay, it's going to look something like that. So to actually get the graph, let's see if my purple pen's going to work. I don't know if it does or not. It's going to open up and follow the asymptotes. One thing I don't want to see you do is to try to make a V in here or an A shape. It needs to be rounded out and get over to the edges of those asymptotes, and it's going to follow that asymptote all the way out. One thing that I will do real quick is show you how to find the foci, and then I'm going to go straight to the asymptotes. The foci is found by c squared equals a. Remember, this is a right there, and this is b, a squared plus b squared. That's going to be 25 plus 9, which is 34. So c squared equals 34. So c is the square root of 34. Now 34 is almost 36. So this is going to be in that ballpark of 5.8-ish. 5.8, when you graph it, 5.8 away from that center is going to be here, and that's your focus. Okay? All right, so the other thing that I want to do is show you how to find the equation of the line. Now, our slope is going to be rise over run, which will be the x value and your y values that are here and here, because those are your change in x's and your change in y's, how they're changing from the center. So I would go up 5 over 3, so my slope is going to be plus or minus 5/3. All right? Now, you guys have told me that you really like y equals mx plus b. But you tell me that, and I had probably about 20% of you have a difficult time writing these equations using this, because you would come back and say, I don't know what the m is or what the x is, or find the b and not know how to plug it back in. Well, I am going to show you where this comes from. So this is your center, and that center is part of both, and it's equal to the m, which I said m somewhere. There it is. M is plus or minus 5/3, so I'm going to do 5/3 times plus b. Okay, well, that's all of this comes out to 0. 0 equals b, so that means my first equation is y equals 5/3 x. And then if you plug this in again and make it negative 5/3, well, you're going to get another equation that says, because b is still going to come out to 0. So you're going to say y is equal to negative 5/3 x. And in this case, I'm done because I am at 0, 0. Now, you're not always at 0, 0. I'm going to do number 4 on this one. This is straight out of the homework, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and graph this. So, starting with the center is at 3, negative 2. Now, be careful because this center being at 3, negative 2 comes from the x being 3 and the y being negative 2. So here's your center. All right. Now, in a y direction, what went first in this case is 9. And so if this is a squared, then a is equal to 3. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. And down 1, 2, 3. Now remember, a squared is always your first denominator. A squared, first denominator. Okay, so that tells me that I've got my a squared and it's 3, and it's going to be doing something like this. Okay, and then the b squared is 4, so b equals 2. So I'm going to go over 2 and back 2. And this is the other side. All right, there's my rectangle. I am going to have a slope of something. We'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, here's the asymptotes. And I'm dotting them so that my lines don't have to be as perfect. I can keep them going. Okay, so when I go to graph this, y is first. So these truly are the vertices. And it opens up and it follows this. And I hit something on the desk that I'm writing on. There's something wavy right there. Sorry. Okay. That opens up. This one opens up. And it should be a curve. If it's not perfect, I'm okay with that. It's when you're not following the curve and you're making this like crazy small. Let me get a pencil so I can erase it. But I had some of you all do this on the quiz. That's not okay. This pencil mark right here is not a hyperbola. The other thing I had some of you do, and I didn't take off many points, I took off a half point, is you did a curve, but you did it tiny on the inside like this. You need to open up and try to somewhat follow the asymptotes, okay? All right, so done with correcting that. Let's go ahead, find the focus just so that if you want it, you can have it. The foci are found from c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Well, that's going to be 9 plus 4, which is 13. So c is the square root of 13. So your foci would be found at this is going in a y direction, so it's 3 and negative 2, and it's the negative 2 that we're going to add and subtract to. So you're at negative 2, the square root of 13. Oh, it's so at 3.5, 3.6, somewhere in that ballpark. That's an ish. So 3.6 is somewhere up here, somewhere down there. That's your foci. But the point of this is not necessarily plus or minus square root of 13 how to find the foci. It's how to find those equations. Again, you all like y equals mx plus b. So if I'm going to use y equals mx plus b, I know that I need an m. My m is going to be plus or minus rise over run. Now your rise, you can count it from your box, or you can say, okay, here's the y information, so it's 3. That's my y. This 2 is the x. Okay? So it's 3 over 2. It's y's over 1. Remember Elmer Fudd, he can't say rise over run, so it's y's over 1. All right? So if you have this, you're going to go in and you go, okay, wait a minute. I have got a 3 and negative 2 that are part of my center. It's not taken from what's down here. That just happened to match. Okay, so -2 for the y, 3 for the x, plus b, and I need to put in my m, which is +3/2. That's going to give me 9/2, plus b, -9/2, -9/2. That's going to cancel. And this is the same as what? 18/2. So that's going to give me -27/2 equals b. 27/2 is 13.5. So that means this would be crossing, wow, at -13.5. That's not believable. Where did the 9 come from? I don't know where the 9 came from. That should have been a -2. And you know what? I said 3 times 3 is 9, pulled it over here. This was a -2. Holy cow. So that would be -4/2, 13/2. Let's fix that. Okay, 13/2. -13/2 is much more believable. That's 6.5. This thing should be crossing. Now, I was guessing at this, but it should have crossed right there at 6.5. So that is very believable. So B, if I fill this in, first equation, y equals 3/2 x minus 13/2. I'm going to do this again, and I used the positive. Now I'm going to use the negative. Y equals mx plus b. Y is -2 and x is 3. I'm not wanting to mess that one up again. -3/2 is my equation. -9/2 plus 9/2 to both sides. Use a calculator. Don't be afraid to. These cancel. That's 4/2, -4/2. That's a total of 5/2 equals b. So y equals -3/2 x plus 5/2. 5/2 is about 2.5. I would say that's where that's crossing. So I would say this is right as well. These are the two asymptotes that you guys are having difficulty finding. Okay, so I told you that I was going to give you one other way to do this same problem. I just don't want you thinking this is the only way to do it. Now, I will say you have to get your m for this no matter what, okay? That I'm going to use the equation, move this up, I'm going to use the equation y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to redo this one side, okay? I'm only going to do this one. I'm going to fill in what I know. I know I have y minus equals m times x minus, okay? So what I am going to fill in, I know that my slope, I use -3/2, and the x and the y come from my center, which the center was 3, -2. It's written actually up here. It's 3, -2. So if my center is 3, -2, I'm going to write that in. This is going to become +2 minus 3. Now I'm going to take this and do y plus 2 equals multiply through, distribute, -3/2 x plus 9/2. Okay, subtract 2 from both sides. That cancels. Y equals -3/2 x. This is the same as 4/2, so that would be plus 5/2. I'm done. Now, it is up to you how you want to go through and solve this, but I see this one as much cleaner because when you're done, you're done, and you don't have to, now to begin with, you still have to know what your m is. You have to know that your center, this is a center right here, so it's up to you. If you want to use y equals mx plus b, I'm good with that. But this is the point slope formula, and I honestly like it better because when I'm done here, I'm done. I don't have to go back and say, okay, wait a minute, what was this? I have to plug in. What was that? I have to plug in. But these two answers are identical. I did not do this one that way, but I wanted to keep this short and sweet. You guys were having trouble with it, so I hope this helps. Thanks a lot.